Good afternoon, Litchfield. I hope you're doing well today. I'm Diane Plansky, Selectman, here for a table talk discussion, hoping to bring ideas to the town citizens so that we can explain what's going on here at Town Hall and answer any questions that you have, we hope. And today with me is our chief, Dan Jones, our police chief.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Appreciate it.
Glad to have you here, Dan. Last time I talked to you was pretty much, well, I talked to you a lot, but last time I talked to you on camera was right after you started. So what do you think?
So it's been January 8th will have been 2 years that I've been here.
Okay. That's what I thought.
And so, when I came here, we had a lot of staffing issues. We're operating at less than half staff. Now we're almost completely full. We still have one position at the moment unfilled. And we're up to staff on our dispatchers and things are going great with that regard. Now that the first year was just growing and getting everything in place and things moving and everybody working together as a team. But in the past year, we've done a lot of really positive things. We had our first ever Citizens Police Academy, which last year was an 8-week program, but we're going to have our second one this year starting March 16th, if anybody's interested.
How many people did you have last time?
I believe it was 12. We had 14, I think, sign up, but on any night, I think we had 12. I think there were 2 that tried to make it through and had conflicts. But so we changed the night this year to try to get different people. We'll be doing Monday nights against 10 weeks. And it's a great program because people get to come in and see what we do. Anything from traffic stops to crime scene processing to the legal system. And most people find it very, very interesting. I'd say all people find it very, very interesting. So that's been a great thing.
I don't think I've ever heard of another town doing that. So I really think that that's kind of cool. I'm sure other towns would do it, but I haven't heard that much about it. I thought it was a really unique idea. I'm going to try and go to it this year.
Yeah, great.
Last year I didn't because it was my first year as a selectman and I knew I was going to be really busy, and I was.
So if you just seek out Officer Rebecca Frula, if anybody's interested in attending, she's the contact person for that if you want to get signed up, but we're ready to go. Another thing is we sent a couple of officers for ALICE training to help specifically with the schools, but obviously could be used anywhere. So, they were educated last year, got certified to be trainers and they help with our internal training, but also working with the school system. And we do exercises with the schools and just in general, our relationship with the schools is so great.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. That was a huge thing for me when I first got hired, was to make sure that we could build and maintain a strong relationship. So
our new superintendent seems to be wonderful to work with.
Absolutely. Brian has been absolutely amazing.
Right? Yeah.
We both are free to pick up the phone and sort things out, and it's been so important.
Yeah.
Another thing, we got our SRO was certified as a DARE officer, so we started that program, and again, just another great program to interact with the kids. We got somebody certified as a certified child seat installer, so help parents learn how to use child seats in the most safe manner.
Yeah, right. That's a doozy. I'm trying to get my granddaughter's car seat into the car correctly.
Right.
Is really hard.
Right. They've definitely gotten, I think, in some ways, definitely gotten better.
It's better, yeah.
But, they got a little more complicated. I think if you have the right setup in your car, they're quite easy now. Not like when we were kids, the child seats back then were.
Oh, they hung them over the seat. Come on, Dan, I'm older than you.
Yeah, we didn't even have them really. I mean, nobody even.
No. They were like an umbrella stroller and they just kind of went over the seat. Yeah, not so safe.
So, yeah, and so back to the department as a whole, everybody gets along, everybody's moving in the same direction, everybody goes out and does their job, so I couldn't be happier. It's been
they seem like they're a pretty cohesive bunch, and
it's a very I've never seen a department that's this cohesive, so that is just a huge thing.
I love it. And they've been busy. They've been so busy,
and they've been busy.
So is it busier here than you thought it was going to be, or pretty much you anticipated?
I mean, I looked at the stats before I got here, so I had a pretty good idea, but you never know. And what surprised me when I got here is really things like the self-initiated things. Every department in the country, or I'd say most departments, if you have a business, they check the business at night, or if you go out of town for a couple of days or a week or whatever, the officers will go by and check the house. I worked for an agency that was, I don't know, 30, 40 times bigger than this. And I don't think we checked as many businesses in a night as these guys do here, these guys and girls.
Wow.
They're just out checking businesses and making sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be in town. So I'm really impressed with things like that when there's not much going on. As you can imagine, on a Tuesday night in February, there's not a lot going on.
Yeah.
So it's they're just amazing. And when they're not doing something, they're doing something.
They're doing something. I love that. I love initiation. Self-initiative? Yes. Well, you gave me this thing on the calls. We've had 19,190 or 1,100
52.
19,152 calls over 2025. That's 1 year's calls. That's
Right.
a lot of calls.
It's a lot of calls, and like I said, I mean, a lot of that is going to be those building checks and checking on things, and finding an open gate or investigating little things that might amount to nothing. But 19,000 calls is quite a bit for an agency this size. And then you throw in your traffic stops on top of that, calls for service and
you're
traffic crashes
assisting Hudson
and assisting other agencies, assisting the fire department, assisting Hudson Ambulance, other agencies. So all of those things, and then the crimes that we investigate, all of those things.
Right. There's been, and this shocked me too. We were talking about the number of arrests, and I was 10, and there was 127 arrests occurred in Litchfield last year.
Which is about double from the year before.
Wow.
And the thing with it, those, it sounds like, okay, did things get a lot worse? Not necessarily. When you have such few numbers, knock on wood, we're very fortunate here that we don't have that much crime.
Right.
So any one or two little things can really make those numbers skew quite a bit.
Right.
All it takes is one person, and I'm not saying this happened, but just an example. If somebody went around and egged 20 houses in a couple of week period, that would really skew our numbers for the year.
Right.
So the fact that we have so few crimes, any little thing can really skew the numbers.
Yeah. So like vandalism, we arrested 11 people, but there was many more vandalism calls.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I mean, that's it's hard. And to go back to my egging example, if somebody goes by, if you're right, if you're gonna we might not arrest them. So there's that end of it, or the people might say, oh, it's this person, so I don't want to press charges. Or it could just be tough to figure out. If somebody has a Ring camera and you see somebody come up and do it, that's one thing. But all of a sudden you wake up in the morning, your car's been egged. You might have no idea who did it.
Right.
And those are we're not going to get fingerprints off an eggshell. At least probably not. Especially a broken one. So those types of things, might not get solved, or like you said, it might be a high school student or even a middle school student.
Right.
Who isn't necessarily going to get.
But you're dealing with the parent and the child, and you're
Right.
trying to hopefully
and
take
again
care of the problem before it becomes a real big problem later.
Right. Going back to the school, and that's why it's so important to have a good relationship with the school, and the fact that we have an SRO in the school resource officer,
Right.
Is that they can go in and help mediate these things or sort these things out before they get into before they get into the criminal justice system. And there is a time and a place for that, but obviously that's not our
Keith Savage was
default.
the resource officer when my kids were going through the schools, and he was just great. He was just on top of all the kids. They knew and respected him. It was a great first relationship for the kids in our town to have with an officer. You want that to be a positive experience. Speaking of positive experiences, we've had 111 tickets written in town. There's a lot of discussion in town. Are we stopping people? Do they see us? Are we busy?
Yeah, so without looking at the numbers, I think we had 1,184 traffic stops. Is that?
We had 562 warnings given, 111 tickets, and we had traffic enforcement 1,178.
1,178. That's
yeah. So you're out there.
So we're out there 100%, and when we write a ticket, it's somebody who really needs a ticket. We're not out there to write tickets.
Right.
We're out there to stop the behavior. So if we can stop it some other way, we'd rather go at it that way than write a ticket.
Yeah.
Hitting somebody in the wallet isn't always the answer.
One of the big problems that you've had to deal with as you've been here for the past couple of years, are the cruiser issues that we have going on here. The selectmen brought forward a warrant article that you're going to see when you go to the polls in March, and it's going to be discussed at deliberative on Saturday. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on with the cruisers?
So, when people talk about cruisers in town, I think a lot of people say we have a lot of cruisers. We have, just to break it down a little bit, we have 3 administrative cars. Like I have a car, the captain has a car, the detective has a car available to him. Then we have 2 cars that are exclusively used for details. They're older cars, and they just go out and do the traffic details, or if we have to get to a detail, if they need a car parked out front for whatever reason, those cars are used for that. So that leaves us with 6 what we call frontline cars. Those are the cars that go out on patrol and respond to emergencies. Again, patrol, respond to crashes, go to whatever we need. Those are the cars that are the meat potatoes of the department.
Okay. And how are they doing?
Um,
Because I know I see them at Edwards quite a bit.
yes.
A lot.
So the average, or not the average, most departments in the area, so I won't talk about Arizona or anything, but in the immediate area, most departments try to get rid of the cars at about 80,000 miles. That's when they find they get the best trade-in value for them. You get years of usage out of them, but you're not running them to 150 where they no longer have any value. And they also are mostly under warranty at that point. And you can sometimes, because the cars are still relatively new, you can transfer equipment from one car to another. So you have those savings as well.
Right.
And that's when they get deadline. That's when they get taken out of service. Our average frontline car, and again, I'm not going to talk about detail cars, the administrative cars, has about 89,000 miles on it right now.
Right.
So at this point next year, you had about 23,000 miles on that. We're talking about each car having over 100, on average, having over 110,000 miles. So that adds up. And the reason why that's an issue is they tend to break down more than civilian cars, just the way they get used.
You had an interesting ride over to Edwards today.
Yes. So this morning when I came in, actually I got an email last night that there was an issue with one of our cars. So this morning when I came in, the first thing I did was to drive it over to Edwards to get it looked at. And on the way there, it broke down 3 times just trying to get it there, and obviously trying to save the tow bill. Luckily, I have lights on, and I could tell when it was going to break down, so I was able to pull over to the side, put the lights on for a minute, shut it off for a minute, let it reset, and restart it, and get it the rest of the way there. So
kind of hard to chase the bad guys that way.
Kind of right. And we had an incident earlier, it was late in 2025, right before the end of the year, where an officer was responding to a cardiac arrest call. And because we're out on the street patrolling, when those calls come out, often we're there before rescue gets there, before the fire department gets there, or Hudson ambulance gets there, because we're right out on the street. So when those calls come in, we're usually the first ones there. We have AEDs, so we are hands on first on those calls. While the officer is responding to the cardiac arrest call, he was the closest one to the call, and the car just flat out died on him. And so thankfully, we got a couple of thankfullys. One, he actually broke down on Albuquerque as he was approaching the fire station. So he pulled into the fire station parking lot, ran to the station, grabbed keys to another car, and continued on his response.
Yeah.
And luckily, there was another officer on. He was able to get there and help out.
So these are the real life ramifications of not having new cruisers cycling through our police station. We used to cycle them through, but we stopped years ago, I think during COVID or before.
Correct. 2020 is when they really went off the schedule. It was by 2 1 year, by 1 the next, then go back to 2 1 2 1. So since 2020, we should have bought 9 new cruisers. We bought 5. So we're 4. Actually, I take that back. We bought 4. We're actually 5 cruisers behind schedule at this point.
Okay, that's tough to make up, but I know that you put on your thinking cap outside the box and brought a leasing program to Litchfield. It's actually a municipal lease, so we will own them at the end of it anyway.
Right. So just to clarify, it's called a lease, and I don't know who came up with it, but it actually just it's a loan.
Okay,
Whoever the financial people are in the world who came up with that term, I don't know why they came up with it, but it is strictly a loan.
right,
So at the end of the 5 years, like you said, and the reason we looked at this was I heard from the Board of Selectmen and from the Budget Committee that they would love to find a way to even out the purchase rather than spending hundreds of $1,000s 1 year and then very little money the next year.
right,
By getting them on a lease program, it evens out so the taxpayers know what to expect every year as far
right.
as what it's going to cost them.
So the warrant article number 10, the police cruisers purchase, um, this year, if it's voted in this year, the impact for 2026 will be zero because the first lease will be purchased through unassigned balance.
Unassigned balance.
Okay, that's something we need to talk more about. I see a lot of questions on it. This is money that would be staying in the account, but would not be being returned. It is not a fund that is returned to taxpayers. And then in 2027, the impact would be 2 cents a thousand.
Correct.
And how are we getting cruisers under this? How many cruisers are we talking
So
about
we'll get 3 cruisers
right away?
right away,
Okay,
and that includes all the upfit, all the equipment that comes with it. Um,
the
minus
computers and
well, the computers they get moved from one car to the next, so that we don't need to buy new computers. But when we own cars, as long as we own them, generally, the insides change, so you probably can't get the same containment system.
okay,
The lights are different. We usually get a full life cycle out of everything that we buy, and it has to be replaced. If we own cars, and I'm not advocating we go, like 3 years, but if you have a car for 3 years, you can probably just move just about everything over from one to the next. But when you have cars 6 and 7 years, like the cars are getting replaced, then they need, everything just needs to go. So you really have to re-outfit a car, and then the striping and everything else.
okay. That's pretty reasonable way, I think, of handling the situation. We'll be at 0.02 for the next 4 years. The first year would be 0, 0.
Right.
But we will have all of the cars that we need retiring and going through. And then what would you do at the end of that? Would you hopefully do the same thing again?
So this is going to get us caught up to a point. We're still going to be behind, so we'll have to do something in between, and I'll work with the board and the budget committee to figure out, okay, how do we catch up a little bit more? Because even by replacing these, we're still going to have cars with over 100 frontline cars with over 100,000 miles,
Okay.
which is obviously not where we want to be. But again, mindful of the current economic situation, we did not want to go to the voters and try to ask for everything we needed all in one shot.
Right.
So, and knowing that other departments have other needs. So again, well,
Police are usually pretty good about that. The first time that you ever brought up the fact that you were cramped was last year. Didn't have a whole lot of popular reaction to it. Everybody's cramped. Everybody's like, okay, can you make it work? You guys are making that work. But cars, we can't really make that work. That's got to happen. How much time do you think you're taking managing the car fleet as opposed to you and
oh goodness, yeah, it's way too much time. On a good week, it might be an hour or two. On a bad week, it might be 10 hours.
right?
Between running the cars to where they have to go, sometimes we can just bring them up to Edwards, but then you figure, okay, talking to them and figuring out the best choices, or sometimes we might have to go to Quirk or some other dealership or some other mechanic or some specialty shop like a transmission shop. So there's a lot of time just in those, and obviously we can't take the officers off the road to do these things because they have to be available to answer calls. So the captain and I are usually the ones who go and do this.
Right.
Also, another thing with the cars being older, parts are harder to find, and the more things that go wrong, it's harder to diagnose what's going on. The average, again, frontline car was down for 40 days last year. Again, that's an average 40 days out of service. That's over a month that the car is unavailable to
And
us.
it's not just when you see them at Edwards.
No, they're right. It could be anywhere.
Right, it could be anywhere, but also in Bedford, you're up there a lot for.
Bedford, right. So yeah, it could be anything.
But what are we doing when we go to Bedford? We're working on the computer.
It could be well, not so much the computers themselves, but the lighting systems. And again, as these things age, they
We do have our in-house IT person who does a lot of
right.
work on.
He does a fantastic job. He's available to us to come in and fix the cars.
It's valuable to have.
So right, so that's usually if we have even with a light bar issue, that's the first thing we do is go to our in-house IT person to deal with that, and then we go from there.
So that saves us some money on that as well. I appreciate you coming and talking about this, but anytime that you have a question for the chief about anything that you hear about what's going on in town, the phone rings and he answers it. Not just for the town administrators, but for all the other citizens as well. We have a very responsible police staff. If you don't get the answer from the officer that you speak to, which I'm feeling pretty often, they're on it. They know what's going on, but you're always willing, he's always willing to take your call. Something just happened with the inspection stickers. There's been a decision made of what they're going to do, or what's the policy right now as far as inspection stickers?
So right, it's funny because I'm sure people know that the legislature voted for no more inspections, and then the federal judge said, "Hold on, you can't go forward with that yet." So I won't get down in the weeds on that, but last week we gave the captain and I gave a directive to our officers saying, while this is in the courts, give people the benefit of the doubt. So we're not going to be looking for people who just have an inspection sticker that's expired. So we're basically, if we see a car with bald tires or something like that, we're going to, and do what we have to do. But we're not going to be looking or stopping people just for the inspection sticker. And we actually wrote something up on Friday to put something out from the department to the public. We're going to put it on our social media. In the meantime, the Attorney General's office put out something that basically said the same thing, that, hey, give people the benefit of the doubt, let them live their lives while this is in flux, because you don't want somebody buying something or paying for an inspection in February and then in March they make it go away. So what they didn't want people to spend money when somebody who happens to be born 3 days later isn't going to have to spend the money.
Okay.
So I think
but this sounds like it's going to put more responsibility when you were saying, if you've got bald tires, I'm going to have to pull you over. Right. So this is actually going to put more responsibility on the police department and you yourself as owners of cars to make sure that your cars are up to the safety standards that they need to be, but you'll be watching.
Right. And so a couple things on that. One, if you're a car owner, as I personally own cars, I'm still going to get my car inspected, obviously not for the state, but just for safety issues for my own knowledge.
Right. Okay.
But I worked in a state, I worked in Florida, and there were where I was anyway, because it was county by county, there were no inspections where I worked in Florida. And things like mufflers, bald tires, two tires facing different directions or things like that. There were cracked windshields. They were very obvious. You don't need to be a mechanic to understand that they're violations.
Right.
It gets harder, though, when you start looking at brakes that are not up to snuff, or, rust, especially in the frame. Those things are hard for us to check, which is why I emphasize, make sure you're getting your car inspected regardless.
You can still get your car inspected. It's not that the inspection facilities are going away. There's going to still be a lot of mechanics that do inspections. So the actual reason for the inspection is to keep your car safe, so that when you and all the people that you love that are in your car are safe while they're transferring people from place to place. I really want to thank you. Is there anything else you want to tell Litchfield while we're here?
No, thank you for your support. And again, remember that Citizens Police Academy. I'd love to see another great showing this year.
Yeah, I hope I make it. I hope I make it. Thank you very much, Litchfield. I'm going to take a break, and then we're going to have some time with Doug. This is a program that we hope to keep going on through the year. Different things that come up. Please let us know. What do you want to hear us talk about at Table Talk? Who do you want me to bring up to talk to? But next, coming up about a half hour or so, is going to be Doug, our fire chief, Doug Nichols. So we'll see you in probably about a half hour or so. Thank you, Litchfield.